Hi folks, thanks for joining me for another Rewind the Gig video. In today's episode we're going back to the year 2002. So to set the scene for you, I'll take you through some of the memorable news events making the headlines. I'll go through some of the TV shows making their debut in the UK. I'll go through the top films and also the top 3 singles in the UK charts. Then I'll talk about some of the metal album releases that year. And then I'll finish up by talking about the gigs that I went to, concluding on the final one, which was Gig in the Green, headlined by the Prodigy. So if you don't know by now, my name is Ricky, and welcome to my channel, Rewind the Gig. Okay, so right at the start of the year, that's when the euro banknotes and coins were introduced into circulation. We also had the Queen Mum pass away at the age of 101. We had the Commonwealth Games in Manchester, and we also had the Winter Olympics held in Salt Lake City in Utah. Another sort of major sporting event from that year was the World Cup in Japan and South Korea. And I remember this because South Korea, who were one of the joint hosts, made a great run and got all the way to the semi-final, where they were beaten by Germany, who would go on to lose to Brazil in the final, with Ronaldo being top goal scorer. I remember this well because I had backed Ronaldo's top goal scorer and for Brazil to win the tournament at combined odds of 30-1. And going into the final, he was like on 6 goals, along with, I think Rivaldo had 5 and Miroslav Klose of Germany had 5 as well. So it could have gone either way, but it ended up Brazil won the final 2-0 and Ronaldo scored both goals, so I was a very happy man. Okay, in 2002, this saw the launch of a TV programme, Pop Stars Arrivals. This was right at the kind of main start of manufactured bands on programmes such as X Factor and Pop Idol. And there was 2 bands this year. There was a male one called One True Voice, and the girl one was called Girls Aloud. And it would be Girls Aloud that would go on and win, and they had the song Sound of the Underground, which went on to become #1 at Christmas time, staying there for 4 weeks. They, of course, would go on to achieve major success, having 20 successive top 10 hits. Okay, this was also a very busy year for Ant McParlin and Declan Donnelly, better known to most of us as Ant and Dec. So the first of the shows which they aired was Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway. And this was a programme heavily influenced by Saturday Night Light entertainment shows of the past, featuring pre-recorded segments and also live sections, and it regularly pulled in audiences of between 5 and 9 million people. Okay, so later on in the year, this also saw the launch of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which was hosted by Ant and Dec. And I love this show. Like, I've seen every episode of all 24 series, and it's still running to this day. It features basically normally about a dozen contestants who are thrown into a jungle environment. I think it's in New South Wales in Australia, and it's normally filmed around about November time. So the contestants have to do like a series of trials, and depending how well they do in those trials, they win stars, which are traded in for meals, for camp. And much of the sort of hour-long episode focuses on the trials, and it'll show clips of the campmates talking about each other. And Ant and Dec are normally witty self throughout it, and it cuts away to them before they introduce segments, and the banter's really good, and it's a much-loved programme, and I think that's what helps them win the TV awards every year for Best Presenters, because of the success of this programme. The first season was won by DJ Tony Blackburn. So this was also the year that Still Game made its debut, and this was a Scottish sitcom created by Ford Kiernan and Greg Hemphill, who played 2 of the main characters, which were Jack Jarvis Esquire and Victor McDade. This is really funny, in my opinion. It's lasted 9 series, and basically centres around a bunch of old age pensioners and their life around like the pub and their goings on, and it's just full of witty banter and sarcasm, and there's much loved characters in it, such as Isa, who's a nosy neighbour, and you've got Tam, who's really tight with money, and Winston with his dodgy leg, and Navid the shopkeeper. And it was born out of an idea. It was a stage play, first of all, and my dad actually bought me the video copy of it. And due to the success of it, they turned it into a TV show. And then after the first 3 seasons, which I think were only aired in Scotland, they get shown across the BBC. So I'd be interested if there's any non-Scottish viewers here, if you've seen it and if you can actually understand it and get the humour in it, let me know. Okay, the last show I'm going to talk about was Bo Selecta, and this was a sketch show written and performed by Lee Francis, who some of you might know better as Keith Lemon from Celebrity Juice. And this was a sketch show which lasted 30 minutes, and it featured around a character called Avid Marion, who was obsessed with celebrities, and he was trying to stop them down. Now, the celebrities themselves, which appear every week, they are basically exaggerated by the use of these big, massive latex facial masks, and it is quite funny. So you've got Craig David, who's like got a massive chin in it, and they all have their own individual catchphrases. Like Craig David's was, "I'll eat and proper ball." He go, "Eat the proper ball, I tell thee," and exaggerates his like accent. And then you've got Mel B, who was portrayed as being dead angry and always talks about her minge and stuff like that, and she'd be, "Oh, my minge is giving out a pong." And then you'd have David Blaine, who was portrayed as a sex-obsessed magician, and it would always sort of go, "She's and it's all because of the magic." And then you had other characters. Elton John, he was portrayed as an angry singer. And who else did you have? You also had Michael Jackson in it most weeks, and his catchphrase was, "Shalom, motherfucker." And one of the other favourite sketches in it for me was the bear. So he was dressed up as this wee bear, and he was to get read a nighttime story. And he always had like the hot girls at the time. I think it was like they had Jennifer Ellison and Gemma Atkinson from Hollyoaks, and they would be reading a story to the bear, and it would build up and then go, "What did he say? What did he say?" And he would get excited, and the celebrities would get embarrassed, and then it would finish with him saying, "Oh no, you've made my tail pop out!" And it'd show you this little bear having an erection. I mean, it was toilet humour at its best, but I found it really funny. But it was quite funny. I remember a lot of girls that I was like going out with at the time, and they hated it, but I absolutely loved it. I think it was probably just more for guys, but anyway, I thought it was funny and really enjoyed watching it. And when I was rewatching some of the clips for filming this, I still found it funny.
The bear looked out of his window and he saw Jennifer Ellison.
What happened? What happened?
Oh my God, I'm not reading that!
What happened?
You naughty little bear!
What was she doing?
Okay, so in the movie world, the number one best-selling film was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and this was the second instalment in the franchise, and it featured in Frodo, who was still trying to journey along to Mordor to get rid of the One Ring, which would rule them all if it fell into the wrong hands. Okay, the second most successful film of the year was Harry Potter, The Chamber of Secrets, and this was obviously a film adaptation of the second novel by J.K. Rowling, and it follows Harry's second year at Hogwarts, where the heir of Salazar, Slytherin, opens the Chamber of Secrets, unleashing a monster called the Basilisk. Okay, and the third most commercial successful film of 2002 was Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was played by Tobey Maguire, and this was the first of a trilogy featuring him as Spidey, who gains his powers after being bitten by a genetically engineered spider, and he fights crime in New York whilst facing off against the Green Goblin in the process. We also had Star Wars Attack of the Clones, which was the fifth film in the franchise, although it's second in chronological order, and it was set 10 years after The Phantom Menace. And again, this was another film which I saw, so I actually saw all of these this year. I've got to give some notable mentions to some other films from this year which I loved, such as Signs, starring Mel Gibson. I remember when you first saw the alien appear in this, it was to do with like crop circles, hence the name Signs. But when the alien first appeared in this, it was like just so unexpected, and it was just a tiny wee glimpse of it, and it was pure like, oh, because I think it just put you in that moment. Like, what if you were just like sitting there in your house, and the next minute you saw this alien walk past your house? Like, you'd totally shit yourself. Okay, another film I really enjoyed from that year was everyone's favourite vampire hunting hero, Blade, and it was Blade 2. So it was based off of the Marvel character. And yeah, I really enjoyed that film. Some of the scenes were filmed out in Prague, and I was actually at Prague that year on holiday visiting my sister. And if I remember rightly, it had a really good soundtrack to it. I do remember like it was a cracking dance song, Operation Blade by Public Domain, and I really enjoy that song. Okay, the last film I'll talk about from this year was Catch Me If You Can, and I really enjoyed this film. It starred Leonardo DiCaprio in the main role as Frank Abagnale Jr., who was basically a con artist, and he played sort of several different roles, or he portrayed himself in different roles, such as a doctor and a pilot, among others, and he conned people out of their money, and that's how he made his living. And he was trapped by an FBI detective who was played by Tom Hanks in it. And so throughout the film, Tom Hanks is always kind of getting close to him, but Leonardo DiCaprio's character always manages to evade him. Eventually, he gets caught, and as part of his payback, he ends up working for the government to receive a more lenient sentence. And it is actually based off of a true story, and that's one of the reasons why I really like it. But yeah, a great film. So watch it if you've never seen it before. It's a good watch. Okay, the top 3 best-selling songs in the UK this year were, coming in at number 3 was Enrico Iglesias with Hero. Number 2 was Pop Idol 2001's runner-up Gareth Gates with a copy of Unchained Melody, which sold 1.3 million copies. And trumping it with 1.7 million copies was 2001 Pop Idol winner Will Young with his debut Anything Is Possible, which was also a double A side of Evergreen. Okay, so sort of from a rock perspective, we had mainstream success for Nickelback with the song How You Remind Me, and we also had chart success for Red Hot Chili Peppers with the songs By the Way and Zephyr Song, and also a bit of success for the pop punk band Bowling for Soup with The Girl All the Bad Guys Want, and Puddle of Mud with She Hates Me and Blurry. Okay, so now to the rock and metal album releases for 2002. So first up we have Papa Roach with Love, Hate, Tragedy. And this was an 11-track, 39-minute album, which was going to be very hard to try and follow the success of Infest in 2000. And to be honest, I'm not that keen on this album. Like, the 2 best songs on it for me are the singles, which were She Loves Me Not and Time and Time Again. Okay, Foo Fighters released their 4th studio album called One by One, which was 11 tracks lasting 55 minutes long. And there was 4 singles released from this, which were Have It All, Low, Times Like These, and probably most famously All My Life, which was the opening track on it. And that is my most favourite track from this album. I think that starts really strong, just the way it's da-da-dun, 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 and then it's all my life I've been searching for something. It just builds and builds until the chorus kicks in, and yeah, that's a highlight one for me. Canadian pop punk band Sum 41 released their 2nd album, which was called Does This Look Infected? And again, a bit like Papa Roach, this was going to be very hard to follow up on their success of their album the previous year, which was All Killer No Filler. So they did a not bad job. There was 14 tracks in the UK bonus edition, which lasted 39 minutes long, and the singles from it were the Hell song, Still Waiting, and Over My Head. And whilst I'd enjoyed the album, I didn't think it was as good as the one before. Red Hot Chili Peppers released the album By the Way, which went on to sell 8 million copies worldwide. So this marked a change of direction from them, obviously sort of known for their sort of funk metal sound previously. This was a more melodic approach, but one that I thought worked really well, and I really liked it. So there was 16 songs in this album. It lasted 68 minutes long. But most of the singles they released from it did really well commercially. So you had By the Way, which was the opener, and then you had Can't Stop, Universally Speaking, Zephyr Song, and the promotional single Dozed. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've actually been listening to this quite a lot in the run-up to producing this video, and it was one of those albums, I do remember, like, I listened to it so much at the time that, do you ever get that way? You sicken yourself, you like listening to an album so much and have played certain songs so many times that you're like, you need to give it a break for a while, but when you actually go back to it and listen to it again, you really enjoy it again. So that's where I'm at with this album. So yeah, I really liked this and I'd be looking forward to seeing the Chili's. The last album I'll talk about from this year was System of a Down with the album called Steal This Album. And I remember buying the cover of this and it was good. It looked as if it was like a blank CD. And I think that was meant to be as if somebody had stole the album. I don't know, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I really like this and you'll know I'm a fan of System of a Down, so they're all short, sharp songs. I think it was 16 tracks in this and it lasted 43 minutes long. So the opener, Chicken Stew, was really good, really short, sharp lyrics. I don't know how you managed to sing some of these words, Serge Tankian, because they're like a tongue twister, such as the other song on it, which I really like, A-E-I-E-O. I can't say it. I can't say it the way that he sings it. It's like I-E-I-E-I-O. Oh, there, I think I've done it there. I find that very hard to sing, but it's a really enjoyable song. And as I said before, I think you're either a fan of System of a Down if you're not. There was a really good slow song, I think Roulette, in the album as well. And they do have sort of some slower numbers, like in their previous album, you obviously had Toxicity. And yeah, System of a Down was a band that I was excited to hopefully see in the future. But do I get to see them or not? You'll need to wait and find out. Okay, so now to the gigs that I went to in 2002. So I'm going to start and do two here at once because it was the same band. So I saw the tribute band Iron Maiden once at Strawberry Fields in Oswald Street and the other time at the Cat House. So obviously, as it suggests, it's an Iron Maiden tribute band. I actually thought this was maybe made in Scotland before they had a name change, but it's not. They are a different band entirely. And I did actually manage to find a little bit of footage. So whilst they're not as good as Made in Scotland, they served a purpose in between being able to see the real Iron Maiden. And obviously they play all the sort of classic hits that you'd expect, such as Number of the Beast and The Trooper and Iron Maiden. So always a good night out. If you've seen some of my videos, you know, I think if you've got musicians musically spot on and a half decent singer, then it's a good night and you know you're not paying much for it as well. So yeah, that's that. Okay, so the next gig that I went to was POD at the Barrowlands. And that was just £10 to get into. So I was keen to try and see them, having bought their Satellite album, which was released the year before, and I got to hear hits such as Boom, Youth of the Nation, and Alive. So POD, Payable in Death, it stands for, is a kind of mix of different genres. It's a bit of rap and a bit of metal and funk, I suppose you would describe it as. This would be the only time that I would go to see POD in concert, so I'm quite pleased that I managed to get to see them at around the time that they were probably at their most successful. Okay, so the next gig that I went to was Papa Roach, and this was at the SECC in Glasgow, and that was £17.50. And this would mark the start of an upturn in the number of gigs that I would start going to. So basically I struck up a friendship with a guy, Andy Sterling, who worked at the same place as me, and we discovered that we liked the same tastes in music. So prior to this, I was going to most of these concerts myself. And so this was the first one that we went to together. I remember going to King Tut's Wawa Hut before it and getting a couple of pints. And then we went along, so we were both keen fans. We'd liked the Infest album and had bought the Love Hate Tragedy album. So they played about 15 songs or 16 songs on the night, 10 of them off of the new album, and I think it was just like 5 off of Infest. And they closed on Between Angels and Insects. They also did Broken Home and Dead Cell. So yeah, really pleased to get to see Papa Roach for the first time. So I'm pretty sure after the gig we went outside and I think I might have bought like a hoodie from one of the guys selling them outside for £10, and we went to the Cat House like nightclub part. So I'd only been in the Cat House previously for gigs. I'd never actually been in it for, you know, like an after show party or like the nightclub part. So that would mark the start of a real friendship with me and Andy. And as I say, it's going to mark the increase in the number of gigs over the next few videos that I produce. So be warned. Okay, so the last event I'll talk about from this year that I went to was Gig in the Green, and this had several bands on it, such as the Prodigy, the Offspring, and Slipknot. So there were obviously other bands playing at it, but I don't really remember them, to be honest, so I'm just going to talk about these three. So sort of last on out of these was Slipknot, and they played 15 songs. They had 9 songs from the Slipknot album and 6 from Iowa. So they opened up with People Equal Shit, and they closed on Surfacing. And again, I was there with like a couple of my mates. I'm pretty sure it was Sparky and Jason. And they thought this was a real spectacle, just seeing Slipknot performing. So whilst I'm certainly not like the biggest Slipknot fan, I find some of the songs are a bit too sort of nosebleed for me. You know, I can't imagine what they thought of it because they're not really into heavy music, but I think just seeing the band, the sort of 9 members and the drummer going mental and up and down and just all the guys in the costume really sort of added to the effect. So this would be the first time that I would see Slipknot, and it was a great spectacle, as I say, just seeing them performing, coming to Glasgow. So the Offspring were second top on the band, and to be honest, this is the only time that I've seen the Offspring. I thought I'd seen them since, but I've not. So I'm actually going to see them later on in October, so quite pleased about that. So I managed to get some footage because I couldn't find any of them. I'm actually really shocked that there's nothing that I could find in the YouTube world for the Prodigy, Slipknot or the Offspring from 2002, because I mean it's not that far back, 23 years, but anyway, so they played songs from 4 of their different albums. They had mainly played 6 from Americana, and they played the hits that you'd expect, such as The Kids Aren't Alright and Why Don't You Get a Job. They finished with Self-Esteem, and they also played Come Out and Play. And yeah, it was good to see them. You know, it was a kind of greatest hits melody that they played on the night. And yeah, as I say, it's the only time that I've actually seen them, so get to rectify that later on this year. Okay, so last up on the night was the one that myself and Sparky and Jason were looking forward to, which was the Prodigy. So I'd seen them obviously in 1996, and this was the second time that I'd seen them. So they put on a really good show. They played about 13 songs off of a few different albums. They had covers of an L7 song and also a Madness song. And they did 5 tracks off of the Fat of the Land. So they had Smack My Bitch Up and Firestarter, Climatise, Breathe. They also played Out of Space. So yeah, a really good, energetic night, and one that the Glasgow crowd loved from memory. As I say, I'm quite disappointed I can't find some actual footage from it, but I've just managed to find some pictures for you. So yeah, that concludes 2002 on the gig scene from me. And yeah, I'm just going to close by saying a big thanks to everyone who's supporting the channel, who's watching my videos. It means a lot to me. I'm trying to get towards the 2000 mark. You know, it's really hard. I put a lot of time into these videos, believe it or not. It actually takes me 7, 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes to produce these in terms of researching them and then trying to find footage and editing the videos and putting it all together, and I get little return for it. I will be doing a video, you'll see that I get little return for this, but I do enjoy doing it, and hopefully as time goes on my memory will get better and I'll be able to find more footage. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you were at any of these gigs or seen any of the bands or artists at concert on these tours, let me know in the comments, and until next time, have a good day.
And it's all because of the magic, says Sam.